weight management is challenging. And we have a potential new hero that you might know as Ozempic. Having good weight is not the same as being nourished. You'll need to fight an environment that doesn't want you to sleep and doesn't want you to switch off. Welcome to The Energy Equation Optimized by Pure Sport, a podcast series dedicated to how our guests use, manage, and unlock the energy that underpins their high-performing lives. I'm Oli Patrick, a physiologist with 25 years of trying to give people more energy and help individuals to manage their lifestyle to avoid ill health and optimize their chance of feeling great. In these episodes, we uncover some of the themes our guests present to us around challenges to their energy or learnings, and we try and dive deeper. We try and get past the misconceptions around these key themes, drive a bit more education, and give you some practical tools that you can use to unlock your own personal energy. A recurring theme through this podcast series is nutrition. It's also movement levels. It's also sleep. And that brings us to the idea of weight management. And weight management sits squarely at the heart of great discussions around optimizing energy. Now, as with all things energy equation, we're not here to tell you what to do. We can't. What we're trying to do is raise some interesting discussion points and give you more tools that you can deploy in your own life to manage your energy, and in this case, your journey with weight management. Weight management is challenging. It's probably the hardest time in lived human history to have optimal weight. Back in the 90s, the World Health Organization called the environment you woke up into today obesogenic. It was literally saying the day today is going to try and get you to gain weight. The word obese has a challenging emotional connotation, but we have to draw it back to its medical definition. It's really used when people have a body mass index above a certain number, that number being 30. Body mass index is a very simple mathematical formula that looks at how much you weigh and how tall you are and works out if you're too heavy for your height based on years of data that suggests heightened weight or low weight would be a challenge to human health. The general premise of BMI is it's a really good tool for looking at population's health and seeing whether a group of individuals may be carrying too much weight or too little weight, but it doesn't necessarily connect brilliantly with the individual. Lots of people who are told they've got excessive weight might be muscular rugby players or weightlifters, or people with low weight might be told they're unhealthy when they're doing so for athletic purposes. So we've always got to refrain from using it too much in an individual basis, but when we hear the word obese, it is referring to someone with a body mass index of 30 or more. And that 30 is quite literally your height in meters squared. So I'm 1.86 meters. I square that, times it by itself. Then I take my weight in kilograms. I'm going to overshare 86 kilograms. And I take that 86, divide it by my height in meters squared, and I get a number. Now that number, if it's above 25, would suggest I'm overweight. If I'm between 30 and 35, I'm obese, and then increasing categories of obesity. But it doesn't know anything else about me. And I think lots of people feel very chastised and judged by that number. So it's quite emotive. And I don't want to use it today other than to reference that's where the phrase obese comes from. So when the World Health Organization said in its obesogenic environment, what it really was saying is you're more likely to gain weight today because everything around you is trying to make you gain weight. When we break weight to its simplest form, we have to say that human beings expend energy. We expend energy on a basic level, keeping ourselves alive. My heart's beating, so is yours. My brain's working, so is yours. My muscles vibrating, so is yours. And all of the energy required to keep me alive uses calories, which is a metric of how much energy I'm burning. Weight has to come down to calories, so it's a good place to start. If today I burn 2,500 calories in all the elements of keeping me alive, plus my physical activity and exercise, and I eat 2,600 calories from a mixture of fats, carbohydrates, protein, all those foods, then I have an energy surplus, 100 additional calories. According to Newton's law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. I can't pretend to understand it much more than that. But that 100 calories doesn't just disappear. That extra energy will be converted into body tissue. And over time, if I have a surplus of calories through my consumption of diet, compared to how many I burn, I will gain weight. This is called the calories in, calories out theory of weight management. And it is increasingly being challenged by people who say there are other factors at play: hormones, environmental toxins, a range of challenges in my gut. I want to stay clean and simple for the purpose of this discussion, because in, calories out, we get most of the explanation for traditional weight gain and weight loss. I want to come back again to the World Health Organization. Why did they call my environment obesogenic? It's called so because it's challenging both sides of this equation. When you go to a technology fair this summer, you'll see a range of intelligent devices that are all doing one key thing. They're trying to make your life a little easier. They're trying to save you labor. I used to have to get up to change my TV controller. Now I can do it with a remote control, or now I can just shout at it. I used to have to walk upstairs. Now it's an escalator. I used to have to call a taxi. Now the taxi comes to me. There's a whole range of things that increasingly mean you are burning less calories day in, day out through all these labor-saving devices than any time in lived history. We then have to flex that against the other side of the equation. So my calories out, my calories that I'm burning is decreasing, but what about the calories in? Well, we've got a bit of a challenge to our food system, as you might be aware. About 57% of UK calories are coming from what we call ultra-processed food. And that definition of ultra-processed food is generally something you couldn't make in your kitchen and normally has 5 or more ingredients. What's the challenge of ultra-processed food? Well, the processing of food is meaning we're taking out some of the things that annoy us, the things we have to chew, the things that don't give us immediate flavor. Most notably, fiber, most notably protein, phytonutrients, all those key colors and elements we get from all the different plants that grow out of the earth. If I look at your traditional ultra-processed food, it might be more beige in color. It's been stripped of all those things that hinder me eating it quickly, but give me so much value from it. And the reality of this type of eating is that we call it energy dense. So when I take away fiber, when I take away the natural things that hold the structure of food, there's more calories in every mouthful. So if most of our diet is coming from ultra-processed food and everything I do today is labor saved, it's very likely that what was once a nice balanced equation, 2,500 calories out, 2,500 calories in, is now out of kilter. I'm burning less and I'm consuming more, and that fragile mix, it really needs to be quite closely matched. If I get that slightly wrong, 50 calories a day, 100 calories a day, suddenly in 365 days, I could be 6 or 7 kilograms heavier. So we only need to get this slightly wrong for it to be quite significant on our weight. When we look at this challenging environment, we're wondering what's going to change. And we have a potential new hero riding in as these GLP-1 agonists that you might know as Ozempic, Wegovy, or other. These medications represent a fascinating inflection in society because they do work. GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide, is something your body naturally produces, and it has some amazing benefits on human physiology. It makes people feel full, which is brilliant. The second thing is they slow how fast moves through your digestive system, which increases your feeling of fullness for longer. The third thing they do is improve your body's sensitivity to insulin, which manages the sugar in your bloodstream, which is a major part of where hunger comes from also. So they're sort of targeting hunger from 3 different perspectives. These medications, again, are mirroring something your body naturally produces. Glucagon-like peptide is something our body produces, but we're producing less of it because lots of the things we need to produce it are disappearing. What's interesting about glucagon-like peptide is our body produces it in response to fiber in our diet. But we've taken fiber out of our diet. GLP-1 is produced when there's a diet rich in proteins and diverse fats, but that ultra-processed diet isn't driving those either. There's also an association between good gut health, and particularly the bacteria in our gut, and good production of GLP-1. But our gut is suffering under this modern diet. Your gut, all those bacteria that we call the microbiome living in there, they feed on fiber, and that fiber and different types of fiber is disappearing with this ultra-processed diet. It's really interesting that we've created this incredible drug to almost mimic the effect of the nutrients that we've taken out of our mainstream way of eating. Now, I'm for any medicine that helps individuals take control of their weight. But what's so important is we reconcile having good weight is not the same as being nourished. There is a slight concern that if I get my weight loss from GLP-1s, I won't be motivated to improve my diet. And we've actually seen conditions like scurvy, where you've got no vitamin C returning because people are eating such a narrow diet on these particular medications, something to be aware of. Weight management is a complex animal. And when we look at it, we have to say it's much more likely that you'll control your weight if the predominance of your eating is coming from whole foods, foods that you have made yourself from scratch. When we sat on this podcast with Emily English, we talked about a whole food approach and how critical that was in nourishing the cells of the body, but also fueling the gut. The bacteria that live in your large intestine have a huge role in managing your feedback loop to how hungry you are, but also all the key processes that go on in your body. Across almost every episode of The Energy Equation, we've spoken about sleep. And sleep is a major important factor in weight management. When you do not go through all the sleep cycles or you don't recover properly during sleep, your body is naturally inclined to decrease the hormone that tells you you're full. You have a propensity to overeat. And that propensity to overeat is primal. Your body's saying, you didn't get enough energy last night, Ollie. I'll go out and seek more energy today. And that's very normal. It just didn't realize you were going to do that for 365 days in a row. Just 3 years ago, a £10 supplement from Amazon stripped Team GB of an Olympic medal. And it could have actually been a lot worse. Imagine the scene. Just days before the men's 100-metre relay final, a British sprinter in search of convenience and trust turned to a seemingly harmless everyday supplement from Amazon. Little did he know, this entirely legal supplement was laced with a prohibited substance, capable of causing life-threatening conditions. This incident lays bare a critical truth, the sheer importance of knowing exactly what enters your body, even when it comes to everyday supplements. Enter Pure Sport, the supplements I use and trust. Just natural, effective, and Informed Sport certified. Informed Sport is a third-party program who test every single batch from Pure Sport, ensuring what you consume is exactly what you'd expect. For peace of mind with your everyday supplements, use code EE10 at puresport.co for 10% off. When we're looking at how we manage our weight, we have to go back to the fact, is the energy I'm consuming reasonable? And am I taking as much of my diet from homemade foods or whole foods as possible? Can they be predominantly plant-based and those plants be different in color and type? And that plays into so many different mechanisms, but what it really does is mimic the effect of these weight loss drugs and slows down our appetite and reduces our need to crave refined foods. When we look at the other side of the equation, energy out, we face some conflicting advice. It's fairly true that if you exercise more, you will be hungrier. We do tend to look at weight management and say, probably the most effective form of exercise is resistance training rather than cardio. I would always break fitness into 3 different categories. My ability to deliver oxygen to my tissues, cardiovascular, things like running, cycling, rowing. My ability to generate strength and retain muscle mass, again, weightlifting or strength-based activities. And my neurological coordination, my balance, my flexibility, things like yoga and Pilates. And they're all of different values at different levels. From a weight management point of view, we do seem to see resistance training and strength work as the hero of the story. The reason for that being is that your muscle mass is one of the major contributors to how many calories you'll burn today. I mentioned as I sit here now, my heart is beating, my brain's working, that's burning calories. But the volume of muscle I have will be the main determinant of how many calories I burn each and every day, even if I'm lying in bed. Muscle is what we call active tissue, so it's always slightly vibrating, and that slight vibration demands energy, so it's a really important tissue for burning calories day in, day out. And if I do weight training, I burn the calories that I burn during the session, but if I was to gain a kilogram of extra muscle, I'll burn more calories on every single day, not just the days that I'm training. When we look at cardiovascular or aerobic exercise, it can play a crucial role in weight management, but it does have a few challenges. The first one being, it makes you quite hungry. And what we tend to get is people overestimate how many calories they burn in that 20 minutes on the treadmill, and they naturally overconsume those calories back. The other challenge is we don't get that calorie burn extending beyond the session in the same ways we do with resistance training. So there is a danger of overeating through false expectation, and there's also the danger that that doesn't effectively change my baseline volume of calories I burn in the same way as weight training does. Interestingly, beyond cardio versus weights versus other, we tend to find the hero of the weight management story in baseline activity. Your daily steps or how active you can be within your own constraints is a major determinant of weight management, potentially equally or more important than these bursts of exercise. We do want people to get as much daily activity as possible, both deliberately, but also incidentally. There's something called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Sounds great. And it's really those calories you burn doing incidental bits of movement, standing versus sitting, twitching, scratching your ear. If those elements add up to an extra 100 calories a day, that could be the big difference between weight rising or falling over a calendar year. We have to reconcile the physiology of weight management is really quite simple in terms of I need to expend more basic calories, I need to keep muscle mass, I need to eat whole foods rich in fiber and protein, and equally try and eat them slowly so I'm getting that feedback loop of quality satiation or how full I feel. I need to offset that against sleeping well and managing stress. But those don't dictate the emotional connection we have with food. And fundamentally, lots of people don't just eat due to the primal feeling of hunger. We eat in social situations. We eat to manage stress. We eat for reasons far beyond our pure physiology. I won't go into those areas in great detail in this talk because I can't do them individualized service in a way that you would deserve. We've mentioned in here the role of sleep, in the fact that quality sleep, something most of our guests have struggled to get, influences my relationship with hunger. It also plays some other hormonal impacts, but it's critical. It would be fair to say not everyone has the same relationship with weight management, and that's because we don't all have the same DNA or our genes. Some people have to work harder to keep their weight under control, and that is the card they've been dealt. We haven't found the smoking gun for a gene that says you will or won't be overweight, but there are genes that make it more likely that you will be overweight. There's a gene called the FTO gene, which seems to have some correlation with when you feel full. That point when your brain says, I've had enough food, I should stop eating now. And so people with a dysfunctional version of that gene might be more prone to overeating. The gene itself doesn't make you gain weight, but means the behaviors that exacerbate weight management would be more challenging. You also have, above and beyond that gene, people who'd say it's a hormonal challenge. And two key areas that tie into that would be the hormone of thyroid, so the thyroid hormone thyroxine, which is something produced out of a gland just below your neck. And that produces a hormone that revs your cells up, makes them burn calories, and has a huge role in what we call your metabolic rate, how many calories your body burns a day. We've got lots of females, certainly somewhere between 1 in 3 and 1 in 2 females particularly, who over the age of 50 have an underactive thyroid, and that means they make less of this thyroxine, and that means they burn less calories. And that would make it more likely that they gain weight as they age, because their body's burning less calories, and unless they change their diet, they'll naturally now move to a calorie surplus. When we look at life stages and we look at the role of menopause, so where females remove their female cycle, they have dropping levels of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, that will also, again, change someone's relationship with weight. Men with our andropause, which is a less dramatic but still relevant version of the menopause, we lose testosterone as we age over a certain point. That would also affect our ability to burn as many calories. These things are true. However, what they mean is your body's naturally going to burn less calories or keep less muscle mass, and therefore you would need to exercise a little harder and eat a little bit less. I know it sounds simple here, and I know it's anything but these hormones don't actively drive weight management. They drive the two sides of the equation that causes weight to be gained or lost. Lots of people would cite the stress hormone cortisol as causing an increase in weight. We do know that if people are under high stress for long periods of time, they'll make more cortisol, and that might lead more fat to store in the intra-abdominal area, so around my organs where it's a little bit more challenging. Whether it actively creates weight management, the science wouldn't sit there yet. But fundamentally, our hormones play a major role in our energy levels, in our hunger levels, in our desire to exercise and move. They don't create the weight, they create it more likely that I would gain weight. I don't have a magic solution for those people who are suffering from hormonal elements, whether that's driven by genes or driven by stress. What I do know is the same behaviors work for you as they do for everyone else, but the dosage might need to be higher. And that's hard news, but the reality of that is your body will still respond to the right cues of more movement and more whole foods and calorie control, but the effort to get there will be greater. We must also recognize stress. Stress is a major factor in why lots of people overeat or don't quite get that balance of weight management right. Lots of people talk about weight management and cortisol, the stress hormone we produce when our body is feeling overwhelmed by the volume of pressures it faces. And we'd probably need a whole separate episode to do that justice. What we do see is that stress has a very clear physiological impact on individuals and can be both the cause of increased appetite, but also suppressed appetite. And some of you will lose weight in times of high stress, others will be prone to gaining weight. There's some individuality to that. What we do know is that high stress levels mask our body's natural relationship with hunger and appetite, and managing stress becomes a crucial part of any appropriate weight management program. What does managing stress look like? It isn't changing the world. It's doing lots of the things our guests have talked about in terms of meditation, breath work, calm, and importantly, a good quality relationship with alcohol, caffeine, and taking the time to sit and eat mindfully. We're always really interested in some of the patterns of our European neighbors around obesity. And there was a lot of excitement around the French, where they didn't seem to have the same levels of body fatness as other countries. And one of the hypotheses of that would be their relationship with speed of eating. And the longer I take to eat, the more likely I am to stop at the point I'm full. Is that the reason why the French have a slightly lower obesity rate to other countries, or is that just different interpreting? That's a great point for discussion. I think when we look at weight, we have to reconcile there's a physiological component. Am I moving as much as possible? Do I have good quality strength exercise to keep that muscle tissue that burns me more calories? Am I eating a whole food diet, aiming for around 30 grams of fiber a day, aiming for at least 1 gram of protein for every kilogram of my body weight, and appropriate levels of good fats, all of which contribute to my body feeling full and not wishing to overeat? Or am I eating shop-bought food with a label on it that potentially delivers more calories per bite than my body would anticipate? Alongside that, have I prioritized sleep, 7 to 9 hours of good quality restoration? And am I managing stress not just by changing my mindset and my environment, but by doing things that allow me to decompress and take stillness in the middle of the day? Once all that's been said and done, there's still a huge emotional connection with food. Most of our childhood memories will have in some way been around or in the presence of food, our Christmas dinners, our school lunches, those big meals out. Food can have such strong emotional connection that for us to understand your personal relationship with food would be impossible, and I wouldn't dare to talk about it. I think the reality is, if we know all the things we should be doing but find it difficult to execute, that's a good time to take support. How do I build an infrastructure that allows me to make better choices more often? And if I'm using food in a way that isn't about the nourishment and the calories, then can I discuss that with an appropriate healthcare professional so that I can manage my stresses, those areas of my life that I need to delve into, and not do that through the portal of what I put in my mouth? On the energy equation, we know how you eat has a major role in your daily energy levels, but it's really difficult to eat well and be nourished. It's really difficult to move well and be active. These are no longer the easy path. The path of least resistance is that World Health Organization obesogenic environment. What we want you to glean from our conversations and take back into your own life is now for you to have appropriate weight, an optimized body composition. You need to deliberately move above and beyond what society asks, and you will potentially need resistance training. You'll need to consciously prepare your own food, and that will mean going out of your way to prepare snacks and prep meals from scratch. And you'll need to fight an environment that doesn't want you to sleep and doesn't want you to switch off. If you can do those things, then weight management lies ahead. If you can't do those things, then do access professional support, because getting weight under control is a fantastic way to optimize your personal energy levels. We must remind ourselves at all times to be kind to ourselves. That's a fundamental principle of good well-being. The environment you're in is trying to make you gain weight. It's very difficult to rationalize the volume of activity you do against the volume of calories you're likely to encounter. But if you move as much as you can, if you take those steps to train, particularly strength training, if you do create those meals from scratch, eat slowly, fibrous foods, rich in protein, whole foods as they came out of the earth, you will be doing incredibly well. If you can add to that some of the tips and tricks we've learned through this series around sleep, consistency of timing, giving it that 7 to 9 hours, giving it caffeine and alcohol free, that's a huge step. If you can decompress, find that ability to be still in the day, to recover, to optimize energy, that will play a role also in how you regulate appetite. We're not here to tell you what to do, but I do hope in this series, in this podcast, you'll find something that could unlock that next level of weight management and bring you the energy you deserve.